The Enlightenment. The French intellectual Voltaire attacked religious intolerance in his essay, The Ignorant Philosopher, when he said, "I say there is scarce any city or borough in Europe where blood has not been spilled for religious quarrels. I say that the human species has been perceptibly diminished because women and girls were massacred as well as men. I say that Europe would have been a third larger population if there had been no theological disputes. In fine, I say that so far from forgetting these abominable times, we should frequently take a view of them, to inspire an eternal horror of them. It is for our age to make amends by toleration, for this long collection of crimes which has taken place through the lack of toleration during 16 barbarous centuries." And so, Enlightenment has one of its major themes, religious toleration. The Enlightenment was an 18th-century philosophical movement built off the achievements of the scientific revolution. The Enlightenment philosophers hoped to make a better society by applying scientific method and reason to social problems, and they learned a lot about reason, natural law, hope, and progress. Enlightenment philosophers thought that society was governed by natural laws just as the Newtonian physical universe was. John Locke, pictured here, had a theory of knowledge that greatly influenced Enlightenment thinkers. He argued that people were born with a mind that was tabula rasa, or blank, and that knowledge comes to us through the five senses only. And this means that the right influences could create a new kind of society by creating a new way of understanding. Enlightenment thinkers hoped to discover with the scientific method the laws that all institutions should follow to produce the ideal society. The Enlightenment intellectuals were called by the French name philosophe, or philosopher. Most were writers, professors, economists, journalists, and social reformers. The ideas of the philosophers influenced the entire Western world. To them, ideas were to change the world by the rational criticism of beliefs in all areas, including religion and politics. The three greatest French philosophers were Montesquieu, Voltaire, and Diderot. Charles Louis de Comte, the Baron de Montesquieu, studied governments to find the natural laws governing social and political relationships. He published his ideas in The Spirit of the Laws in 1748. Montesquieu identified three kinds of government: republics, despotism, and monarchies. Montesquieu's analysis of the English monarchy is his most lasting contribution. He argued that the government functioned through a separation of powers controlled by checks and balances. This structure gives the greatest freedom and security for a state. Montesquieu's ideas influenced the American framers of the Constitution. The greatest figure of the Enlightenment was the very prolific writer François-Marie Arouet, known simply as Voltaire. He wrote pamphlets, plays, novels, letters, essays, and histories. He's best known for his criticism of Christianity and his belief in religious toleration. He championed deism, which was an 18th-century religious philosophy based on reason and natural law. Deists believed that the world is like a clock that God created and set in motion, and sort of left there as like an absentee landlord. One of the most famous deists in American history is Thomas Jefferson. He even went so far as to write a deist Bible, one in which he took out all the parts that didn't conform to deism, like miracles. The Enlightenment's belief that the methods of the scientific revolution and Isaac Newton could discover the natural laws of society led to the creation of what we call the social sciences, such as economics and political science. The French physiocrats and English philosopher Adam Smith founded modern economics. The physiocrats believed that if people were free to pursue their economic self-interest, all society would benefit. They developed the doctrine of laissez-faire, that is, to let people do what they want, which argued that the government should not interfere with natural economic processes by imposing regulations. Adam Smith gave the best expression of this approach to economics in his famous work, The Wealth of Nations. In The Wealth of Nations, Smith said that the government had only three legitimate functions. Number one, protecting society from invasion. Number two, defending citizens from injustice. And number three, maintaining public works like roads and canals that private individuals couldn't afford. For centuries, punishments for crimes had been very cruel. One reason was that extreme punishment was necessary to deter crime in a time when the police force were too weak to ensure that criminals would be captured. More generally, the Enlightenment produced a set of principles concerning human affairs. The first, humans are naturally good. The second, reason was the key to truth. And the third, intolerant or blind religion was wrong. If people were free, progress was likely. A few Enlightenment thinkers argued for more specific goals, for economic equality and the abolition of private property, and for women's rights. New ideas in all fields spread through reading clubs and coffee houses. Attitudes towards children changed to favor less harsh punishment, a sign of a general new affection between family members. Parents became interested in allowing freer movement and greater interaction with young children. In agriculture, the methods of medieval times altered. There appeared new methods of swamp drainage, use of nitrogen-fixing crops, and improved stock breeding, and many new cultivation techniques. New World crops like the potato also increased the food supply. The agricultural advances, along with the growth of internal and international commerce, spurred manufacturing. The domestic system of household production gave farmers additional work. Important technological innovations like the flying shuttle in weaving also helped improve efficiency. After 1730, the changes in economic activity caused a rapid growing population. Many landless individuals found jobs in manufacturing. More people lived longer, resulting in earlier marriages and sexual relationships. Three strands of change transformed the West: the commercial, the cultural, and the political. This produced an unusual version of an agricultural civilization. A new generation of philosophers emerged in the 1760s. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was the most famous. In his discourse on the origins of the inequality of mankind, he argued that people formed governments and laws to protect their private property, but the government relationship enslaved them. In 1762, he wrote The Social Contract, where he presented the idea of a social contract in which members of society agreed to be governed by the general will, which represents what is best for society as a whole. In his novel Emile, Rousseau argued that education should nurture, not restrict, children's natural instincts. Unlike many Enlightenment thinkers, he believed that emotions as well as reason were important to human development. Critics have accused Rousseau of not practicing what he preached. His children were sent to dangerous orphanages, and he believed women were naturally subservient to men. Mary Wollstonecraft is considered the founder of the European and American movement for women's rights. She argued that women were as rational as men and as capable of being responsible, free citizens. In A Vindication of the Rights of Women, Wollstonecraft identified two problems with the beliefs of many Enlightenment thinkers. Those who argued men should rule women also argued against government based on the arbitrary power of kings. Power of men over women was equally wrong. She also argued that because women are rational beings, they should have the same rights as men in educational, economic, and political life. The Enlightenment ideas were most known among the upper urban class. They spread among the literate elite. Literacy and the availability of books were increasing greatly during the 18th century. Many titles were aimed at the new middle-class reading public, which included women and urban artisans. Magazines for the general public developed during this time. The daily newspaper did as well. The first was printed in London in 1702. Enlightenment ideas also spread at the salon. Salons were gatherings in the elegant homes of the wealthy. The guests took part in conversations, often about the new philosophical ideas. Nobles, thinkers, artists, and government officials attended these salons. Some became very famous. The women who hosted them could sway political opinion and influence literary and artistic tastes. Most of the philosophers attacked the Christian churches, but most Europeans of the time were devout believers. The desire of ordinary Protestants for a greater depth of religious experience led to new religious movements. One new religious movement was Methodism. John Wesley had a mystical experience in which the gift of God's grace assured him of salvation. He became a missionary to bring the glad tidings of salvation. He preached to masses in open fields in England and appealed mostly to the lower classes. His sermons often caused people to have conversion experiences. Many Methodists helped each other do good works, which gave to the lower and middle classes a sense of purpose. Methodists stressed the importance of hard work. After Wesley's death, Methodism became a separate Protestant group.